Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. I've been married for 18 years and have 3 kids: Jack, Sophia, and Emma. We live in a great home, have 2 relatively new vehicles, and my wife, Emily, works for a charity since we don't need the money. I have a career that I like, and my workload has dropped over the last 4 years, with decent hours and occasional travel for business and pleasure. I thought I had it all: wife, family, a 2-car garage, and an excellent school district. What more could you want? That was until I got home from work and found my wife, Emily, sitting in the kitchen, looking worried. What's wrong with you? What is wrong? Are the kids okay? Her face contorted. They are well, Michael, but I have some really awful news. I am leaving you for Thomas Mitchell. It's nothing you did, nothing you can do will alter my view. I've cleared my closet and bureau, everything else is yours. I felt my stomach churn. Who the hell is Thomas Mitchell? What does he have that I don't? You love him, she said. I adore him. We've been seeing one another for about a year. He is the governor's cousin from the side of the family that received the most of the family riches. The children and I will move live with him in Richmond, Georgia. Richmond? I cannot believe it. You've been seeing him for a year, and I had no idea. I was astonished. The world that I knew was gone. It's true, occasionally the spouse is the last to know. So I suppose I made it simple for you by placing my whole faith in you. Are the children mine? She asked. Of course they are. How could you think like that? She was attractive but not stunning, and she did not stand out in bed. Unless she tried far more to satisfy him than she did for me. So what's the point? The sadness evolved into searing rage, but I maintained control. Guess I've been screwing $1 million escort, I joked. I rose to my feet and motioned toward the door. So, get the heck out of my home and don't let the door strike you on your way out. Enjoy the wonderful life till he abandons you for someone younger. I have nothing else to say to you. She threw an envelope on the table and swiftly departed. I sat there, crying. When I went upstairs to lay rest, I saw that the children's rooms had been empty, along with the pictures they had put on the walls. It seemed as if I were living in a tomb. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Thomas Mitchell refused to allow me speak with my children. Sophia had slipped out and knocked on my door. We scheduled a covert rendezvous. I purchased 6 burner phones and gave each child one of the numbers. I provided them a new phone number every couple of weeks so that if anybody examined their phones, my numbers would only be called on occasion. We took caution with emails, which could only be sent from library computers or a friend's PC. To avoid my ex, I used the email address David Clark, named for a brilliant novelist. So I keep up with their life, but not as often as I would want. Sophia phoned every other day, generally from a friend's phone, and the boys once or twice a week. The situation did not improve in the months that followed. Words cannot express the wrath, anguish, and sadness that consumed me. Emily had traded up in marriage, so much so that she didn't bother requesting any of our assets, alimony, or child support. There was no purpose, I suppose. To her credit, she asked for nothing of commercial worth, but what she took was priceless: my 3 children. We sometimes hear tales in which a woman is given $1 million to have sex with a guy. Usually it's women we wonder about, figuring most men would do it for nothing. The amusing aspect of the issue is who would pay $1 million for sex, especially sex with an ordinary person. I suppose Thomas Mitchell has tens of millions of cash, so I could see her bailing on that. Who knows? Perhaps it was love. I'm not sure whether I would have ran off with a Mrs. Larson, but you never know until someone offers. The children, too, stopped communicating with me. I suppose it's the money. The promise of a free Ivy League education, as well as the more immediate joys of a wealthy lifestyle, cars, clothing, skiing in Aspen, summer in Paris, cannot be compared to surf fishing with Dad. However, this does not excuse my children from not insisting on having one foot in each camp. I thought I had raised them better than that, but they are children. The fundamental question remained: what the heck did Thomas Mitchell see in Emily? She didn't stick out in any throng I could picture. She was involved in just about everything. She was very excellent with people, but so are many of them. Most of our friends remained friendly. But now that I was single, I was periodically invited to parties and had a handful of mates to go fishing with, but I was really lonely without my closest buddy and felt like damaged goods. Which I was. I considered suing them, but my lawyer advised me not to do so since I had little chance of success. And for what? I earn a respectable living, $135,000 per year, but how does it compare to Thomas Mitchell's? So I succumbed and attempted to go on with my life. As I have said, I had a very difficult first year. My home had become little more than a residence. Functionally, I was at the edge of my children's life. I wasn't really fit to date ladies. Sophia got me through that dreadful year. I managed to keep my cool by focusing on my task. What more could I do? I felt sorry for myself, immersed in self-pity, rolling about in anguish like a puppy. I sold the blasted home 6 months later and moved into an apartment in town for over a year. Cut down on overtime and started fleshing out ideas I'd had over the years but were neglected by the old folks in management. I realized I was a better businessman than the idiots who ran the firm ever realized. I saw a clear path for the company to expand and succeed, but management couldn't let go of the old business model they devised years ago, which had effectively grown the company but was outdated in today's environment and was being phased out. It was as if I were aboard the Titanic, and I was the only one who could see the iceberg. What could you do except dress warmly and stand near the lifeboats, reading the launch instructions? My job hunt was going nowhere until I had an unexpected job interview from a firm that had acquired one of our smaller rivals. They wanted me to adapt my employer's previous business plan so that they might expand their firm. In a series of interviews, I discussed the issues and proposed my own solutions. They were eager to pay a premium to get me away from Titanic Incorporated, and not only because their company was based in Springfield, Massachusetts. I was able to negotiate a large vacation package by agreeing to take the majority of one day every week under a contract linked to company development and profitability. Apparently, they had difficulty convincing individuals to move to a little town. Springfield, whether charming or not, is equally frenetic in the summer and lifeless in the winter. I leaped at the opportunity to make a clean break. I changed my email address and obtained a new phone number my children knew, but not their mother. Of course, in the era of the internet, you can't really vanish, but I saw it as a means to reinvent myself, since neither my old company nor my ex-wife respected me. It helped to cast things in the hazy light of the past. I didn't become as wealthy as Thomas Mitchell, but I did quite well by my own standards, and as the firm grew, I was able to recruit excellent young people to carry out the business strategy. After a few years, I had a decent equity position and started working from home often, delegating the day-to-day tasks. I leased a house for a time before finding a large 3-bedroom craftsman-style cottage on a lot with a view that was within walking distance of Springfield. The most demand is for ancient historic properties, while residences from the 1920s and 1930s are contemporary and fairly priced. As a bonus, it included $20,000 worth of woodworking equipment in a heated garage that the elderly man had purchased new when he retired but never learned how to use. I joined the local historical society, volunteered for various projects, and put myself out there, but the selection of prospective matches was limited. I was 40 years old, there were few single ladies in the 30 to 35 age range, and of the few of an acceptable age, well, I'll be shot for saying this, but the education level of the year-round inhabitants was uneven, and the summer folks were typically too upscale for my taste. One of the historical society members asked me if I could repair an electrical issue on his boat. I loved the elderly man, so he and I spent Monday on the boat, and I corrected a number of various issues. We went out for a short cruise and I discovered that I like sailing and he enjoyed company, so he taught me to sail. We agreed on a trade. I'd maintain all of the mechanical and electrical systems operating, he'd hire someone to do the ongoing cosmetic repair and cleaning, and I could take it out anytime I wanted. Well, I had to call ahead if it was a day sail. We would often go out together. I should have told you that I could have purchased the down boat, but I'm cheap, and who wants to pay the high cost of owning and maintaining one? I was in the marina changing the oil in the auxiliary engine when I heard hoots and shrieks from a boat approaching the pier. I grabbed a boat hook and trotted over, watching the tide. I asked for the stern rope, which they tossed short, but I could merely hook it and draw the stern to the pier, whereupon the tide pushed the bow, allowing me to grab that rope that was trailing in the sea and tie them securely. The alcoholic driver demanded I join their group for supper at one of the fancy restaurants nearby. I didn't want to spend the evening with a bunch of drunks, so I respectfully refused when a really attractive lady approached Captain Rum. "Don't be put off by Wallace," she said. "I'd want you to join us for supper, after all, you saved us. You deserve it." Her behavior indicated that she was sober, no rings on her left hand, attractive, educated, with a subtle British accent and a figure made for comfort. "Will you truly sit next to me at dinner?" she asked. There was taunting laughter from the boat. "He hooked the boat, you hooked him. Way to go, Laura." We were captivated with one another. Laura was 7 years younger than me and worked at a legal firm in New York City, developing rules and regulations for lobbyists. She was stunning, not Hollywood gorgeous, but someone I'd recognize in a crowd. As we chatted, I realized she shared my political views, appreciation of old things, water, and reading. She couldn't have children, which troubled her when she found out years ago, but she'd grown to accept it over time. After my experience with my children, it didn't worry me at all. "Laura, I don't want this night to end," I told her. "There are no strings here. Would you want to stay at my place? I have a guest bedroom with a locking door, but you don't need it. Do you have your driver's license with you? Give it to me." She snapped a photo of it with her phone and sent it to herself. "If I don't come back in one piece, my mother will come after you," she said with a joke. "Can you take me to Westlake on Monday night?" she asked. "Sure. Where is Westlake?" We got into my vehicle and I waved to two elderly ladies I knew who had just left the restaurant. I asked if they might drop us off at the marina, where my vehicle was. One of them had arranged for me to go on a couple of blind dates and was overjoyed to see how much I liked Laura. After meeting Hannah and Sophia, who liked to be nicknamed Daisy, they mocked Laura. Daisy began by saying that Michael is a valuable asset to the community. I attempted to set him up with a local lady or two, but my fault was not being able to locate someone as beautiful as you. "We want to keep him here, so if you marry him, you must agree to live here." Hannah offered her opinion. "He can cook, fix anything, and has a good income, plus is nice to sweet old ladies." Laura promptly returned it. "Well, if he's been turned down by all of the young ladies around here, maybe I should be cautious. They must know something that I don't." "Daisy, or more likely, you recognize what you've got there, B," I remarked, but everyone chuckled. "I just met Laura this afternoon," I said. "You're scaring her away." We did not have sex that weekend, but the next weekend we went out on the boat and had a good time. We were both coming off a lengthy dry period physically. Laura was the polar opposite of my ex-wife, who was tiny, slender, and blonde, while she was almost as tall as me, pleasantly rounded, and had jet black hair. She was English, with a father from Kent, England and a mother from Madras, India. The best part was that we made each other laugh with our jokes. Unfortunately, she was the polar opposite of my ex-wife in negative aspects. Emily was eager to attempt whatever she'd read about or seen in a spicy film, and she was prepared to do it again. Laura enjoyed sex but was rather tense. I was perplexed since she spoke a nice game but was severely restricted in bed, and things weren't getting any better. I had no issue getting her to climax, but she believed that blowjobs, vulgar conversation, and outside sex were perverse or demeaning to her personally. I was going to unwillingly throw her back into the dating pool when I had an epiphany one chilly, rainy day in the autumn. We were heading into town on Monday when I saw she was the only lady still wearing sandals. I was wondering whether she had a foot fetish. I got 2 cocktails in her that evening at the restaurant and a glass of wine at home, so she was very relaxed. "Laura, some people believe that sex may be disgusting or degrading, and that loving couples should be respectable in bed together. I believe it is my responsibility to do whatever you like, and yours to do whatever I enjoy." "Michael, don't you like making love with me?" she asked. "What are you talking about? What you and I do is make love. You are adept at that, but there is also lustful drilling and sex play, which we haven't done tonight. I would want to try my hand at sex. I won't get into specifics, but we had a great finale. It was the first lesson I taught her on the enjoyable and rewarding road of giving and receiving amazing sex. That year, the weather was unusually mild, at least until October, and our relationship was arguably the happiest period for me in decades. Once a week, weather allowing, we'd sail on Cape Cod Sound. It was often warm enough to take off our clothes with no other boats in sight, have a drink, swim, and generally screw hard once or twice before cuddling beneath a blanket while the boat rocked us to sleep. Then we'd have love in the chilly morning. That autumn, we fell in love. Cape Cod is 150 miles distant from New York City in terms of lifestyle, yet it just takes an hour and a half by automobile. That winter, she sold her Manhattan apartment and relocated to Cambridge, where she lived with me. She had a relatively flexible schedule, and most weeks she spent a few nights in New York City and the rest of the time with me. I proofread her writing for clarity and completeness, rather than spelling and grammar. I'd be lying if I said I completely understood anything she wrote, but at the time, I could follow it, and if I couldn't, there was a problem. She was more outgoing than I was, but I loved people as well, and we both enjoyed going out with her friends in town. My life close home was nice. She had to go to New York City on Monday morning to spend the following several days preparing for a case, and the town council meeting I had attended finished sooner than scheduled that Monday. So, to surprise her, I drove to the apartment, arriving at 9:25. There was no trace of her, so I phoned, and her phone went to voicemail. I confess that being caught off guard by my unfaithful ex-wife caused me some concern. She answered my call an hour later, stating that she was taking a break but would be working half the night. We spoke, and I was thinking how to ask her where she was when she volunteered. This is shaping out to be one hell of a week. We discovered on Monday that our office did not satisfy federal truck regulations, so we all went to a legal firm in Bridgeport this morning to get it completed by 2:18 p.m. tomorrow. I'll be fortunate if I get any sleep tonight. The only positive news is that I'll be able to return here a day earlier. Oh, excellent. Actually, the council meeting finished early, so I wanted to surprise you. I'm at the apartment. Oh, you said creature. Spend the night here, I should be back around noon or 1. We can eat lunch. I would ordinarily take you up on it, but I have to return in the morning, and you'll be fatigued. Honey, I'm sorry I missed you. At the very least, I'll catch your aroma as I slip between the blankets. I'll miss you. I'll take a long snooze at the flat tomorrow and get home in time for a late dinner. I smiled, knowing Laura and I were in a wonderful place, but that sensation in the back of my mind remained, as it always did. I didn't want to accept it, but I still cared about my ex. The kids, my past with Emily, it all drew me in. I had to push it aside and concentrate on what was in front of me. Laura. A few days later, she told me I realized I have to shut my phone off a lot when I'm in meetings, or just so I can concentrate. But then I don't know who's calling. So I got a smartphone, just for you and me. We can set it up so you can track me. That way, you'll know where I am. I laughed, and she did too. I don't need to know that. I trust you, I said. She chuckled. I trust you too, but I have no secrets from you. You never know, that phone feature may come in handy sometime, for some other reason. So she gave me the gift of wisdom, which was not so beneficial for Adam and Eve, but it was useful for us. I checked on her a few times but never bothered again. It seemed like a minor comfort, but we decided not to let it bother us too much. We had ups and downs, as every relationship does, but we were content. That was the most essential thing, right? Still, I questioned whether I would keep my vow. I consented to give my kidney to the girl who later became my daughter, despite having no clue what would happen. I hadn't anticipated so much drama. However, I was starting to accept it. It was preferable than feeling like I was always drowning in the past. Things were going quickly, and just when I believed everything was coming to an end, there was a knock on the door one Monday morning. That was my ex-wife. "You're dead to me," I murmured as I slammed the door, frowning. Laura was undoubtedly aware of what had occurred. "Who was that?" she asked. "My ex-wife," I said. "Told her to go away, but now she's knocking again." Laura frowned at me. "That is also my house, and you will be nice to her if only because she is a guest in our home." Her tone was harsh but understanding. "Things are obviously going very poorly for her, or she wouldn't be here." Laura smiled, opened the door, and said, "My husband says you're Andrea. It's good to finally meet you. I am Laura, by the way." I shuddered as I stared closely at Emily. She had always been skinny, but now she seemed emaciated, with sunken cheeks and eyes. My initial reaction was, what the hell did I ever see in her? The second left me wondering whether she was genuinely unwell. Emily glanced at me nervously and added, "I'm sorry for intruding. I won't take long." Laura slipped right in, saying, "Don't worry about anything. We are staying at home this afternoon. We were planning on going out, but Michael had some yard work to do." I got the message and walked outside, mumbling to myself, leaving them to their conversation. Laura phoned around 18 minutes later, "Coffee's ready." I'd finished putting oil in the mower and went inside to wipe my hands and make myself some coffee. As they ended their chat, I sat down with them and felt a sense of calm wash over me. Fortunately, I recognized that I had no sentiments for Emily at all, no love, no hatred, and no emotions of any kind. And looking at the two of them, I can honestly say I was relieved to be free of her. Emily stared at me, dejected and fatigued, when the coffee cups were finally empty. "So, after all these years, Michael, I don't suppose this is a social call?" "No, it is not. You've got 2 daughters. The youngest is 7 years old and requires a kidney transplant." She paused for emphasis. "She's in total kidney failure, and the doctors think you're likely a match." I remained quiet for a minute. "Jesus, what a bombshell," I said eventually. "I knew you and Henry had a daughter, but mine cannot be." "You don't say. That is really unfortunate. But, as you know, I've never met this kid, so why don't you go to Switzerland or wherever money can buy anything and heal her? That has nothing to do with me. So, for the second time, why are you here?" She gave me an envelope. "My husband's shooting blanks and handing me this envelope," she added gently. "I knew you'd be skeptical, so I obtained the DNA results. I did not have a sample of your DNA, but all of your children have the same father. She is your flesh and blood. We are having problems finding a kidney match, and she won't be around much longer. I'm here to beg you to get tested for a match and, if so, to save her life by donating a kidney." I blinked, my mind racing. Laura saw me about to go off the rails and placed her hand on my arm. "We need to talk about this. Why not send us the complete information via email and we will consider it and get back to you?" "Every day she's suffering, Michael," Emily remarked. I sighed heavily. "Let me speak to Laura. I will call you the day after tomorrow. I promise." Laura rose up and searched through the desk for one of my business cards. As Emily was departing, I couldn't help but comment sarcastically, "It was good to hear how the number of my ex's children is increasing. Please let me know if any more come out. Drive cautiously back to where you came from." I closed the door as Laura took Emily to the vehicle, speaking intently. I warmed a cup of coffee, thinking about Emily's chutzpah for shoving her money in my face. I walked out to my business, lost in contemplation. Laura phoned a few hours later and invited me to join her for dinner. "Well, there's what I'd call a troubled woman," she said. "Her child is dying, slowly, and the only hope is a big favor from a guy who despises her. That isn't all, her marriage is also problematic. That basically sums it up. I don't hate her," I said, "but I dislike her. I don't resent her for abandoning me, but for depriving both myself and my children. She thinks she had it difficult after losing a child. Okay, my children aren't dead, but they may as well be since they aren't a part of my life." "Do you believe the kids are actually mine?" Laura questioned, lifting her brow. I doubt she would lie about it. "I believe you'll find out quite fast if they test you for a kidney match. I spent some time studying kidney illness and transplant procedures. I discovered that the child will soon die without a new kidney, and there is a severe scarcity of kidneys. The greatest result is if the donor is a close match to the recipient. The kid would most likely have a transplant at some point, but it would be a difficult period for her until then. She could die of renal failure before then." That Monday night, I poured Laura a glass of the nice wine we keep for guests, rather than the normal stuff on the table. "You understand I want to push Emily to the curb and toss her under the bus, don't you?" I said. "She hasn't changed one bit. If she hadn't really needed me, she would never have informed me about my daughter. But I need to do this." "Do you know that?" "Do you mean throw her under the bus or donate a kidney?" Laura asked, and we both chuckled. It released the strain. "I wish the child was okay." I wish your children were a part of our life, and I hope you could retain both kidneys. But if I had a kid, I'd do everything to rescue her. I know you feel the same way. So I understand why you had to give her your kidney. Laura's strength, bravery, and dedication were evident to me before we married. Didn't she give us a get-out-of-jail-free card? What are we hoping to get out of this? She asked. Right now, all the anguish and blood falls on me. My daughter, too. How can I persuade Emily and her husband to include some blood in the game? I don't know why you would care, Laura answered gently. Forget Em and concentrate on what you want. Do you know what you really want? No, I never really gave it a thought, I answered, understanding how deeply I had been trapped in this poisonous loop. Do you? She rubbed my arm and smiled. You need to answer that question, not me. I thought of when my other children were growing up. I had been working so hard to bring home money, working on the house and automobiles, that I didn't have much time to appreciate my children. Then they were gone. So here was a daughter I didn't know at all, and I wanted to be a part of her life, to be photographed standing next to her on prom night. They still have proms, right? Laura nodded. I want to raise her the way I wish I could have raised my elder children. That is what I desire. Jesus, do you want custody? I inquired, astonished. She wouldn't give you that. This would also be upsetting for the youngster. But I would be delighted to have Chloe for a weekend or two. It may work. I believe she might give us custody, I replied. Do you remember Solomon's judgment? 2 ladies claim a kid. Solomon resolved to chop the baby in 2, one for each claimant. One lady accepted, the other gave up her claim rather than let the kid die. Solomon proclaimed her the mother. I believe Emily will do the same. You don't believe that, Laura remarked, shaking her head. I can't make custody a condition of donating a kidney, I told the judge. A kidney for the child. The youngster wants a kidney. What are your thoughts? There are a lot of thoughts running around in my mind right now, I told her. You are correct, I cannot demand custody as a condition. The child receives my kidney. But I was thinking. Emily doesn't need to know that. Years ago, I worked hard to get the wrath out of my heart, and I did a fantastic job. But seeing Emily again with the hidden kid brought it all back. I wanted vengeance on Emily, too, but I didn't tell Laura. That night, we hammered out the structure of an agreement, and one of Laura's lawyer pals volunteered to turn it into something lovely, legal, and binding. Just before we left for Richmond, I added a page at the end. It took me about 18 minutes to locate the identical font that the Down attorneys used. I wanted everything to match. Laura phoned Eliza on Monday and arranged a family gathering for us, Eliza, her husband Henry, and my 3 elder children. We specified that Chloe not be present, which sounded reasonable. I went up the day before for a tissue match, which confirmed she was my daughter and that I was a perfect match for a kidney donation. Laura spent the most of the day with Emily and the kids while I was doing all of this. They got along really well. The following day, Laura and I met with the Larsons. Henry was plainly disturbed by the entire situation. Emily was ill with worry, and my other children weren't doing any better. They did look excellent, with fine attire, costly haircuts, and flawless teeth. Well, I studied up on everything, and the Kidney Foundation is a fantastic organization. I'd like to see them come out ahead on this, I said. So, it turns out you were right. Emily, Chloe is my daughter, and the excellent news is that I am a good match for donating a kidney to her. But you are asking me to endure major surgery, remove one of my kidneys, and donate it to a stranger. That's your child, Emily said. No, I said firmly, she's the child of Henry and Emily Larson. I waved at them. You guys left my life suddenly, and you never informed me about Chloe until you absolutely had to. I have every reason to believe you will keep Chloe away from me as soon as you have your pound of flesh. Furthermore, this is all on me. None of you will have lost a drop of blood or endured a minute of suffering. You don't have any skin in the game, do you? Emily's face distorted with sorrow. There must be a way. We would do everything to rescue her. Whatever you want. I stopped for dramatic effect. What will it take? You're asking. Well, 2 things, I said. For starters, I need some time with my kid. 72 days every year, or 18% of her time. She will live with Laura and me. Emily, do you believe that is fair? Okay, what is that? 2 weekends every month. That would be 43 days, or around 18% of the time over a summer week or two. Okay, so I would get her 18% of the time and you 80% of the time. Okay. I glanced across to Henry, who shrugged. More than fair, he explained. I think so, too. We agree on that. Consider what I will go through, perfectly healthy, being cut open, and having an organ taken to save someone else's life. How many of you in my position would be willing to do what you are asking me to do? I continued. Raise your hand. The 3 ladies raised their hands and my 2 boys followed suit a few seconds later, although cautiously. Even Henry raised his hand. So, are you all eager to do anything you want me to do? They all nodded. We have the makings of a deal, I told you. It will also aid the Kidney Foundation. Emily and I aim to give kidneys on the same day, one to Chloe and one to the transplant program. And when it occurs, Chloe takes my kidney. I get custody of Chloe. What have we said? 15% of the time. That seems fair to everyone. How's it sound? You two will be written up in the paper as heroes, Henry mumbled. You may claim credit for everything. What is my credit? You may claim it was your idea. You're even more wonderful since your contribution is going to strangers, not relatives. Everyone nodded. They were okay with it, but Henry didn't seem delighted. I gave him a verbal jab. Are you okay with this, Jim? He instantly applied his public smiling face mask. Yes, certainly. It's a nice thing to do, and it benefits many people. So why not? Emily, on the other hand, said, Thank you very much, Michael. You don't understand what this means to me. You're wrong about that, Emily, I informed her. I understand what this means to you. More than you realize. But we all decided that Emily, Henry, and I would each give a kidney, and then everything would fall into place. The next week, Emily had surgery. The procedure on me started as soon as the surgeon finished and changed his scrubs. After I awoke from anesthesia in the intensive care unit, I was transferred to a private hospital room. Laura had been with me in the ICU, but as soon as I was situated into my own room, she and Sophia came in to chat. I received an update on Emily and Laura informed me that the doctor indicated I was well. Sophia looked me in the eye and said, I'm sorry Henry and Emily tried to demonize you, Dad. It was like cult mentality, as if we were making a sacrifice for the future. I mean, it seems ridiculous now, but we were kids and they were. They were all on another planet. She began weeping and I stretched out but couldn't hold her since I wasn't feeling it at the time. Laura, however, was right there. I can hug you, Sophia, she said. I forgive you and your father as well. Come on, you were a child back then and you tried your best. But in the future, Michael and I want you to be an important part of our life. My kid, Jack, entered at that moment. Good you're awake, he remarked. I'm planning to give a kidney too. I joined up when you were under. Henry bailed, by the way. He postponed it indefinitely, but we all know it will never happen. Ethan, I don't know if that's such a good idea, I told him. You've got your whole life ahead of you. I know, Jack said. But you don't need to. The agreement is finalized. You going through with it does not absolve Henry of responsibility. It has nothing to do with it. Chloe gets to live with you. That's all nice. I think Chloe will be better off with you, I added, nodding. I just gave my word. I said I would do it. If my mother and father could do it, I guess it would be a fine idea. You know, I've been watching Chloe suffer, and if I understand correctly, they may be able to divide my kidney and save 2 people. Jack shakes his head. You really thought Henry wouldn't go through with it, didn't you? I mean, he hates being called Henry, doesn't he? Yes, he'd be punished for 3 weeks if I ever called him that. I'm just glad everything worked out, I said. Laura looked at me as she realized what I had done. I suspected Henry wouldn't give anybody a pound of flesh, but I didn't want to confess it at the moment. Better still, I was the one who would accept responsibility for Emily's daughter's death. I didn't know Henry and had never seen him till a week ago. He did appear like a stuffed shirt. "Dad, you're playing him like a fiddle," Jack said, beaming. "I don't believe he is one of us, is he?" "Nope," I said with a slight giggle. "He is not one of us. And he never will be." That week marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. When we had Chloe on weekends, one of her siblings would bring her down, and the two of them would frequently remain all day, returning late in the evening. My wife Aura would drive her home on Monday. We soon had Chloe for the whole weekend, and things went so well that we began taking her every Monday night. During the summer, we went sailing and fishing rather often. We brought Chloe and her sister on vacation to see the wonders of New York City, and then took the boys on the same tour, extending the trip by one day since we couldn't get the kids out of the museum. Emily visited Chloe at the end of the summer. We spoke, and she appeared more comfortable and joyful than I recalled her being. Laura allowed us some time together. "You know Henry and I don't get along well, don't you?" Emily said. "No, I didn't know," I said, shocked. "Laura and I are doing well, however. Perhaps you should talk with her. You must have done something good in years past." "The kids came out well." Emily's words stunned me. "Well, Henry's not much of a father. He resembles an older playmate rather than a parent." "I guess that puts a lot on you," I corrected myself. "He's not one for sacrifice and hard work." "Well, with enough money, you can sit around and fritter your time away," Emily replied almost cruelly. "Did you mean to drive a wedge between us?" "I did not drive any wedges. When you abandoned me, you didn't care about me, and now I don't think about you at all. First and foremost, like you, I wanted Chloe to have a regular life. Second, I wanted my children back in my life. I am willing to share, but I was irritated that you refused to let me participate in the children's life. That irritated me." She moaned and looked away. "That's all in the past now. I'm okay with it now." "So, what's the issue with Henry?" "I've lost my kid, Chloe. And now he's cheating on me as well," I added, the words hanging in my throat. I almost choked and then chuckled. I could hardly suppress the sight on her face. "You useless witch. You were content enough with cheating on your spouse and denying him his children, weren't you? Do you honestly expect compassion from me? Turnabout is fair play." Emily remained quiet, but I could see she was ready to say something, and then she began laughing. "Justice doesn't feel good on my end," she eventually responded. "But there's a prenup." "Yes, I'll be wealthy, but not satisfied." "That last bit is on you." I raised an eyebrow. "Somewhere along the way, you overlooked an important truth of life. You must first determine what makes you happy, and then find someone who will allow you to do whatever it is that makes you happy. Only you have the ability to find this out and put it into action. What if Henry is not the right guy for you? Cut your losses, devise an exit plan, and do what you did last time: start searching. And when you find someone else, get an excellent divorce lawyer, leave Henry, and marry your third spouse." Emily shook her head and laughed. "You're a piece of work, Michael." I merely smiled, allowing the moment to settle. We both knew things would never be the same. Life had a way of changing under your feet when you least expected it, and here we were, her, still connected to the past in some manner, and me, attempting to carve out something new. Laura, Chloe, and I had created something wonderful and genuine, and I was not going to let it go. Not for anybody. Emily's world was slipping away, and I had no regrets. Later that evening, when Emily had departed, I informed Laura about our talk. She listened closely, her eyes never leaving mine. "How did it go?" she asked. Same old," I answered. "She is still attempting to dominate the story. She will never change." Laura nodded, her expression softened with understanding. "I understand it's difficult, but you're doing the right thing. You're ensuring Chloe's future, which is what's important." "I guess," I answered. "Sometimes it doesn't seem like enough. I've gone through a lot, and now I have to make a big choice. It's difficult to keep my emotions under control when it seems like the world is coming apart around me." "I get it, Michael," Laura murmured, grasping my hand. "But you have something genuine now. We have something genuine. We developed it together, and that's more valuable than anything Emily could ever provide. You do not have to bear the burden of the past. You have already paid for it. Her words stayed in my thoughts, like a subtle promise. I went in to kiss her, and the weight of everything that had transpired seemed to lift, if only for a minute. We spent the remainder of the evening discussing the future. It seemed remarkable that, despite the sorrow, I could see a path ahead for Laura and the kids. It was possible to heal, even if it took time, and I hoped that we could all come together in a manner that was appropriate for our circumstances. Over the following several months, everything gradually began to settle. Chloe settled into her new life with us, and my older children started spending more time with her. I could see they were still trying to figure everything out, but I hoped that with time, things would feel more natural. Emily, despite her insistence on doing things her way, began to drift from the center of my existence. Her calls and visits grew more infrequent. I knew this wasn't easy for her, but I had my own life to live now, and I wasn't going to let her pull me back into a past that no longer served me. As the year came to an end, Laura and I took Chloe on our first family vacation together. We traveled to the mountains together, just the three of us. It was a brief retreat, but it seemed like everything had finally clicked. We were a family in our own way, and that was plenty. We brought Chloe to her first snowball battle and her first proper sled ride down a hill. She laughed so loudly that I couldn't stop smiling as I watched her enjoy the simple pleasures of youth. It was a moment that validated all of our efforts. One evening, as we sat around the fire, Chloe gazed at Laura and me with wide eyes. "Do you believe I'll be able to attend college like you said?" she inquired, her voice filled with hope. I clasped her palm, experiencing a rush of emotions. "Yes, sweetie, you will," I said. "You will do anything you want. You have a whole future ahead of you." Laura smiled at me, her eyes softening. "And we'll be there, cheering you on, every step of the way." And for the first time in a long time, I felt as if everything was right. Thank you for watching. What would you do if you had to choose between saving a stranger's kidney and your own? Share your opinions in the comments section below, and remember to like, share, and subscribe.